The warmth of companionship had always been a comfort, a quiet assurance that no matter what, someone was there. For years, it had been the dog, loyal, affectionate, and unwavering in its devotion. Every morning, soft paws nudged the blanket, a silent request for attention. Every night, the rhythmic breathing beside the bed was a lullaby of security. Then came love, a romance that felt fated, almost too perfect to be real. He had walked into life like a dream, effortless in charm and intoxicating in presence. The way he laughed, the way he touched, every moment felt like a whispered promise of forever. The dog approved at first, greeting him with wagging excitement, tail thumping against the floor in happy anticipation. It was an unspoken sign, a stamp of approval from the one who had always been the best judge of character. Life felt complete. Late-night drives, shared laughter over dinner, stolen kisses beneath dim streetlights, each moment a piece of something bigger, something that felt unbreakable. The dog had become part of the love story, curled at their feet on cozy nights, a silent witness to affection that felt endless. But perfection is an illusion, a fragile thing that can shatter with the slightest pressure. Subtle changes began to surface, small at first, almost imperceptible. His touch, once warm and lingering, became fleeting. Conversations that used to stretch for hours now ended in monosyllabic responses. He was distracted, distant, lost in thoughts he refused to share. The dog noticed first. It started with hesitation, a moment of pause before greeting him, eyes flickering with something unreadable. Then came the avoidance, choosing to stay by the protagonist's side rather than rushing to meet him at the door. The bond that had once been effortless was now strained, a silent discord growing in the background. Excuses became common, late meetings, unexpected plans, vague explanations that never quite made sense. A gnawing feeling of unease settled in, an instinct that something was shifting. Yet love is blind, and trust, once given, is hard to take back. Doubt lingered but was pushed aside, dismissed as overthinking. After all, love was about patience, about understanding. People had bad days, distractions, moments of withdrawal. It was normal, wasn't it? The dog thought otherwise. It watched, eyes keen, body tense whenever he was near. At night, it grew restless, pacing by the door, ears pricked at the faintest sound. Still, denial persisted. There was no reason to suspect, no proof to validate the creeping suspicion. Until the night, everything changed. The silence of the night was unsettling. The usual warmth beside the bed felt colder, distant. The dog stirred restlessly, its ears twitching at every faint sound. Its usual calmness had been replaced by unease, a tension that made it pace the room. Something was wrong. Lately, there had been too many nights like this. He came home later than before, smelling of unfamiliar perfume, his smile forced, his touch hesitant. When asked, he dismissed concerns with a kiss, a half-hearted chuckle, and a vague excuse. The words felt rehearsed, empty. The dog noticed everything. It no longer wagged its tail when he walked through the door. Instead, it would stare unblinking, as if seeing something invisible to the human eye. It stayed closer than usual, its protective stance more pronounced. One night, the restlessness became unbearable. The dog paced by the door, whining low in its throat, tail stiff, ears alert. The clock read past midnight, and he wasn't home yet. The messages had gone unread, the calls ignored. Then the noise. A faint creak from the other side of the house, almost imperceptible. The dog froze, muscles tensed. It growled, a low, warning sound deep in its chest. A shiver ran through the protagonist. The house was supposed to be empty. The dog moved first, darting toward the sound, nails clicking against the floor. Hesitation warred with fear, but instinct pushed forward. Following the dog, heart hammering, breath shallow, the hallway stretched longer than usual, each step heavier. The air smelled different, faint traces of his cologne mixed with something sweeter, something foreign. The dog's growls deepened, its body rigid with tension. A flicker of movement ahead. Shadows shifting in the dim light. The unmistakable sound of whispered voices. Every fiber of trust, every ounce of certainty, unraveled in that moment. Something was happening behind that door, something not meant to be seen. The dog knew it before the mind could accept it. One more step. The door stood slightly ajar, revealing just enough. The dog growled louder, snapping the fragile moment of denial. A breath hitched in the throat. Reality struck, swift and merciless. The world stopped. Time folded in on itself, trapping the moment in an unbearable stillness. There he was, his hands, his lips, his body entangled with someone else. The warmth once reserved for whispered promises and stolen kisses now belonged to another. The betrayal was suffocating, crushing every memory, every moment that had once felt sacred. It wasn't just the act itself, but the ease of it. The way he moved, the way he touched, as if love had never existed between them. A sharp inhale shattered the silence. The dog lunged forward, snarling, fangs bared. The reaction was instinctive, protective, as if sensing the pain that hadn't yet found words. The intruder flinched, scrambling away, while he stood frozen, caught between guilt and panic. Eyes locked. A silent plea, a desperate attempt to explain the unexplainable. But no words could fix what had already been broken. "Wait, let me explain," he stammered, stepping forward. The dog growled again, standing its ground, muscles coiled tight. It wasn't just anger. It was betrayal laced with grief, a heartbreak that ran deeper than words could reach. Everything made sense now. The distance, the late nights, the cold touch, the excuses that never quite fit. The signs had been there all along, ignored in blind faith. Love had been a lie, a carefully crafted illusion. A rush of emotions surged, rage, sorrow, disbelief. The urge to scream, to demand answers, to rewind time and pretend this moment never happened. But nothing could undo what had been seen. Nothing could erase the truth. The dog turned, eyes searching, as if waiting for a command, a sign of what to do next. But there was nothing left to say, no fight worth having. With slow, measured steps, the protagonist stepped back, away from the wreckage of what once was. The weight in the chest was unbearable, but the choice was clear. Love should never feel like this. Love should never break like this. The door closed behind them. The dog followed, never looking back. The night air was cold, but the weight on the chest was colder. Each step forward felt heavy, like dragging the remnants of a shattered heart across an empty street. The dog stayed close, pressing against the leg, offering silent comfort. No words were needed. It understood. There was no going back. No second chances. No explanations that could make betrayal acceptable. The person who once felt like home had become a stranger, and home was no longer a place but a presence, the quiet loyalty of the one who never left. Days passed in a blur. The phone rang, messages poured in, apologies laced with desperation. Each one went unanswered. Words meant nothing when actions had already spoken the truth. The pain came in waves, unpredictable and relentless. Mornings were the hardest, waking up to the absence of something that had felt permanent. Nights were quieter, lonelier, but never truly alone. The dog remained, eyes watchful, presence steady, as if knowing that healing would take time. Anger faded into sadness, then into acceptance. The love that once defined everything was now just a memory, a lesson learned the hard way. It was strange how something that once felt irreplaceable could lose all meaning in an instant. Life moved forward as it always did. Slowly, routines became easier. Laughter felt real again, and the weight on the chest grew lighter. The dog still nudged the blanket in the morning, still curled up close at night. Nothing had changed in its love, and that was enough. Then one day, something unexpected. A new presence, a familiar warmth, not the same as before, but different in a way that didn't feel frightening. A stranger with kind eyes, a gentle smile, and a patience that didn't rush the healing process. The dog watched carefully, assessing, reading between unspoken words. And then, for the first time in a long time, it wagged its tail. A sign. A quiet approval. Maybe, just maybe, love wasn't lost forever.